Hello everybody and welcome to Season Up Sunday. As you all might already know, 2 days ago the second leg of the Grand Chess Tour started in Leuven, Belgium. And of course the best chess players in the world are there, including Vishy Anand, who is replacing Laurent Fressinet. Now, I want to emphasize on a game from today's first Blitz day. So today the players played 9 games and tomorrow they are going to play once again round robin, just switching the colors. But today, in the last round, Hikaru Nakamura played against reigning champion Magnus Carlsen, and Magnus had a winning position. However, given that this is a blitz and he didn't have enough time to calculate, he ended up blundering, and instead of winning, he ended up making a draw. And it is very important, after seeing this endgame, of course it is very tough to play when you only have 15 minutes on the clock. It is very tough to calculate everything and make sure that you know how you're going to win a king pawn endgame position. However, it's important to learn from our mistakes so that in the future we don't do them again. And not only from our own, but also from top players' mistakes, from our friends' mistakes. In chess, there's so much to learn every single time from every single game that we cannot just let things pass by. And so I wanted, because today is Season Up Sunday and you all got used to me analyzing an endgame or various blunder positions, but today I've chosen this one because I think it teaches us a lot of important ideas. It reminds us of a lot of important ideas in king pawn endgames, and I certainly want all of you who are going to watch this video to kind of look back and see your own games. Have you played a game where you ended up in a king pawn endgame, and did you mess up? Were you able to win? If you have some interesting positions that you played where you messed up, feel free to share them with me, and I'm going to try to include them in a video. I've done this some time ago and I want to do it again. And so really, if you are on my Facebook page, be sure to post it in the comments. If you are watching this video on my YouTube channel, be sure to post it in the comments there or send me a private message. And I'm going to include tragicomedies happening in my viewers' games. Now, what is a tragicomedy? I got this term from Mark Dvoretsky's Endgame Manual. Some years ago, I received the book as a present from a very good friend of my family, and I love the book. I think it's very nicely explained, and I use it to teach my own students, and I certainly recommend it to you all. If you don't own that book yet, it's a really nice acquisition and you won't be sorry. But now let's get back to this position. So in this position, what do we realize? We realize that black has this g-pawn about to promote. In fact, Hikaru's last move was king f2 to enter in the box of the pawn and make sure that that pawn won't promote. And of course, you want to capture the g2 pawn. And here, you have to think with black, what is more important to you? To protect your pawn by playing h3, to capture your opponent's pawn in e4, or to play another move that is possible, king f4. Now you've got these 3 moves, you have 15 minutes on the clock, and you have to make a decision. Now, Magnus didn't choose the best move here. And unless you're very familiar with this type of endgames, or you basically can calculate 10 moves ahead instantaneously, you might go for h3. I would be tempted to do that myself in a blitz game. However, after you finish a game, you analyze it and you see where you made the mistakes. And so I can tell you here immediately that h3 was a mistake, because although it does protect the pawn, it basically allows white to play g5. And this move, after this move, it will be impossible for black to grab any of these pawns. So this is an important rule that we are reviewing right now. what people who have passed pawns who are one file separated from each other, they should keep them on the same rank until the king comes to attack one of them. Whenever the king comes to attack one of them, the other one should be pushed in such a way that they are going to form a fortress that don't allow the king to come get the other pawn. And so in order for black to be able to go grab the g5 pawn, he would have to play king e6, king f7, king g6. And so with white, what do we need to do when black goes king e6? We have to stay with the king to stop these two pawns from promoting. But notice white also cannot grab these two pawns because they are passed pawns connected and they are close to promotion, and it is impossible for white to play king takes h3 after king h2. And so here, if black goes king f7 to threaten to play king g6 and grab that pawn, that is the particular moment where white has to play e5, keep the pawns on the same rank, and now if black goes king e6, white is going to push g6. If black goes king g6 to capture this pawn, white is going to push e6. So that's why, unfortunately, black won't be able to capture either of the pawns. So now let's just put here on the board king g6, e6, king g7 once again. Just be aware, black doesn't need to play king f8 to keep allowing white to push these pawns and end up losing the game. But he can just take king g6, king g7, because the pawns don't advance further. That's the trick about it. They are able to stay like this in a knight position, basically, if you want to remember it that way, but they can never be pushed further because in case white pushes e7, the king just enters in the box of the pawn and in the same time maintains his position in the box of this other one. So if g6 were to be played here, the king captures in e7 and now will grab the other one. After king g1, Magnus just repeated the position here, king e5, king h2, king e6, king g1, king e5, and they agreed to a draw. However, if we go back to the starting position, he had two more moves, two candidate moves to consider, which we don't know if he did consider or not, but let's see what's going on here. If black just takes in e4, this would be a blunder, because after king takes e4, white simply captures in g2, and now comes another very important idea, which is described in Mark Dvoretzky's book as mind squares. And here it is. When black goes to capture this g4 pawn, white goes king h3, protecting this pawn in g4, but also attacking this pawn in h4. And when black plays king g5, the only move to protect their pawn in h4, technically white would be in Zugzwang with their king, because no matter where they move the king, and they only have king g2 and king h2, they would lose this pawn. However, this is happened to be in Hikaru Nakamura's advantage. Now, white doesn't need to move the king. He has this extra tempo b4, after which black is the one who is forced to get away from the square. So he has been mined. He has to go away, and now white captures this pawn in h4 and will be able to win the endgame, eventually giving the g-pawn to go grab those two. So king e4 is losing there. How about king f4? Well, since I told you that it was a tragicomedy, you realize that this was the right move for black to play in this position, king f4. And the difference between this move and king takes e4 is substantial. And let's see why. Well, in this case, if white captures in g2, nobody forces black to capture in e4. They can capture in g4 first and then go ahead and grab this pawn, whether it will be on e4, on e5, or e6. Black will capture it, and by the time white goes to take this h4 pawn, black will have captured the b3 and a5 pawns to win the game. So very, very important here. You always go to capture the further away pawn, and then you are going with your king on the other side of the board where the position is already blocked. Nothing is happening. Nothing new is happening there. you're gonna capture these pawns first. Specifically the G pawn, that's what black wants. And now white does still have a move that supposedly should be a good move, because here it is, e5. And now if you capture, we're getting the same position as we got earlier. So king takes e5 is a blunder for black, because after king takes g2, no matter which way you are coming with your king to capture the g4 pawn, you won't be able to do so, because after king h3, although technically I'm the one who has to move the king, I'm not, because white has an extra tempo here by playing b4. And you have to go back, and once again we reach to the same position. But after king f4 e5, black has a better move. King takes g4. So now the idea is as follows. If you take in g2, well, the same thing as we saw earlier, we're capturing the pawn in e5, and you have to make a really long circle to capture h4 first and then b7. And if after e5 king takes g4, white pushes, which seems the natural move, it is here that black goes king h3, and here you notice why it was good for black to avoid pushing the h3 pawn, because that square is needed for the king to be able to win the game. If white tries to stop black from playing king h2 and promoting by playing king g1, then he's entering on a typical mating position, king g3, and although white ends up promoting, it is black who ends up mating him first. So definitely that's not the right choice for white. White has to push e7, and after king h2 promotion, black promotes as well. And the tricky thing about this situation is that black will be able to either give some check queen if you try to go with your king to protect the pawn. For example, I'm giving you queen g2 check here. If you try to play king d1 and say here go king c2 to protect your pawn and I won't be able to capture it, I do have this queen c6 check, trading the queens, and end up winning with the h pawn. And of course, if you don't go protect the pawn, I could try to go grab it, or let's say here, if you play king e1, black can simply play king g1. And now black with the queen in f3 has stopped all the checks, and the queen on the g file cannot check because there will be queen g3 counter check and offering the queen trades, forcing actually the queen trades, and black would be winning. So this would have been the winning for Magnus. Unfortunately, like I showed you earlier, he ended up playing h3, after which there's no more chance for black to win, because there won't be any possibility for black to capture these pawns. After seeing this endgame, I hope you're going to reconsider your knowledge in king-pawn endgames and make sure you're reviewing a little bit, just to reinforce your knowledge a little bit more. It's never wrong to review things. You know, it's much worse when you actually play them and miss things. So here it was, Tragicomedy from the World Champions game. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Thank you.